Today we will analyze the punching technique in boxing. And the punching technique in boxing relies on biomechanics. What is biomechanics? Bio, it means living. It is our physiology. It is our muscles. This is very important. As strong as we are, that is how confident we are. Mechanics is a branch of physics that is based on geometry. So, let's analyze. A person has 3 axes of rotation. The first axis of rotation is our arms. When my coach was teaching me, he even told me, look, the arm rotates, the elbow rotates, that's already energy for the punch. Most likely, in boxing, you won't be hit like this. You won't see any wind-up at all. Most likely, the arm will just be brought to you and spun, just spun. That's what an axis of rotation is. So the first axis of rotation is your arms. The second axis of rotation is our hips. The hip. This is where the strongest muscles of a person are concentrated because we walk with our legs. Here, as Bruce Lee said, lies all the strength of a person. And the third axis of rotation is our legs. Everywhere there is rotation, there is energy for a strike. That is, the first axis of rotation is the shoulders. Well, the joints, the arms. The second axis of rotation is the hips. And the third axis of rotation is the legs. 3 physical forces that act in a strike. The first force is what we push or propel. Simply by lifting the foot, our body shifts from one leg to the other. Here's the axis. Magnificent. The second force is what we rotate. We rotate in the hip, rotate in the shoulder, rotate in the foot, rotate in the arm. There it is. And we spun it. It's simple. Pushed, spun. The third aspect, the third physical force, is the tilt of the body during a strike. When the body tilts, that is our body, you can see, right? It can tilt. There are very strong muscles located on the back. Body tilt. The body tilt is done after the rotation, or let's say at the moment of rotation, you are already tilting the body. That is, each stage is enhanced. The push is enhanced by the rotation. The rotation is enhanced by the tilt. Thus, we have 3 physical forces aligned on one line. Now, regarding geometry. What is geometry? That is, last time we explained that the stance, position in boxing, that is the feet, the direction of the feet show the bending line. This is the acceleration line, along which we accelerate. So there is a nuance here to understand. We have 2 lines diverging, and here they converge at this point. That is just like in a triangle. Point A, point B, and the point of impact. This is point C. That is, we accelerate. Transfer the body weight and accelerate it. The second aspect, we rotate. And third, we lean into this point. That is, the physical phenomenon, well, the strike falls. So it results in this kind of moment. We must aim for this point. Not this one, not that one, but precisely this point. That is, we accelerate and lower the hand here. It just, you see, falls to this side. Moreover, if you strike with this hand, the same thing happens. We do everything from the perspective of a triangle. Let's see how it looks on the bag. That is, when the leg is lifted, we are already shifting the mass. Here it is very important not to topple over, in terms of ensuring your knee doesn't go astray. It shouldn't be too bent, nor should it be completely straight. That is, there should be a slight curve. This is necessary from the perspective of the spring effect. Therefore, if we are, for example, standing at close range and can't swing. There's no room for a backswing. We just place the hand, and simply by lifting the leg, by shifting the body weight, we strike in different ways. It can be from the side or from below. That is, the striking distance is very short. At medium range, there is also a nuance. At medium ranges, we cannot accelerate as they say, the body weight. Well, it just won't work. If we try to shift the body weight from one axis to another, most likely we will just end up in this elbow position. That is, I'll explain why. The elbow should be straight. That is, during the training process, especially when setting up strikes, a slight bend in the elbow is allowed. This is related to physiology because the joints, bones, and muscles are, as they say, not yet hardened, still tender. And strong strikes will immediately affect your joints, reaching the spinal cord and the brain. This is a concussion. Therefore, when you are learning, when you are practicing your strike, a slight bend is allowed. But in the original form, and from a biomechanical perspective, you should have a straight line. If your elbow is bent, then most likely, at that point, the energy of the strike will simply, break. That is, it will just veer off to the side. That is, you will simply collapse. Therefore, the moment of tension. Without transferring the body, but by means of rotation, you can strike. This is how it happens. Only through rotation alone. These are variations of the strike. For each strike, for example, we have 21 modifications for a straight strike. There is a short strike, a medium strike, a long strike, and a multitude of angles. A multitude of options, exits from defensive actions, just a multitude. Right now, we are specifically examining what biomechanics and geometry are. And at a long distance, here is where the full amplitude of your strength is. And this is the strongest strike when you accelerate the body weight, when you have already done all the necessary twists, that is, with the shoulder, leg, and hip. A straight strike at a long distance is considered the strongest. If you further enhance it with a step, that is also step forward. So, you step, twist, and lean your body into the strike. That is, each of these parts is functional. In a fight, you will most likely strike this way. You won't have perfect biomechanics. In general, this is very rare, and most likely biomechanics come into play when finishing off a boxer, when you've, so to speak, slightly knocked them out, but not completely. And now you're already moving in. Vision is not quite the same, concentration is not the same. So your opponent is practically defeated. They won't notice your actions. In the overall picture, they have just a little bit left. That's when, yes, you lean back, take a swing. And as they say, there's a high probability that you'll take advantage of this. Biomechanics is needed by a boxer only to understand what forces they are striking with, what forces they are using against the opponent. It's not like there's a perfect scenario where you say, hold on, let me show you. Biomechanics worked here. Nothing of the sort. In a fight, you act according to the situation you find yourself in. Now, regarding the biomechanics of a hook punch, it's a very interesting thing. Here, if with a straight punch we push and rotate, our rotation, let's say, is minimal. Let me explain. If in the first case we strike along the triangle system to point C, meaning it's already charged, then we work along the same line with a hook punch. Very often, guys over-rotate the punch. They swing it somewhere, meaning they wind up and lead it, even leaning over. This is a critical or fatal mistake. Here's the point. You must stop on the line of this foot, specifically just as your line goes, so that you don't over-rotate. Because the further you go, you'll have to bring it all back. But here, you just reach this line once. Go to this line, go to this line. It's all very simple. The biomechanics of a side punch. Once again, look, it's done in a sort of circle. That is our legs. You are essentially unwinding the body. That's the first thing. Here, there's also a transfer of body weight. If you look frontally, you twist from here to here. There. Once to the line of this leg. Once to the line of this leg. That's where the maximum force is. Like this, like this, like this. It doesn't matter there. The biomechanics of a side punch is unwinding, very strong unwinding. And also the tilt. You assist with the tilt. Once, however you like. The biomechanics of an uppercut also changes somewhat. For example, because of the position of your torso, the position of your hips and your legs when you do it. Immediately, without a backswing. Here's a straight punch, a side punch, and an uppercut. You do it immediately. There are times when you maneuver, slightly lower yourself down, and push the strength through your legs. That is, you actually make a forward push. Moreover, if you look at it from a geometric perspective, you have a straight line going from the foot through the knee like this. It's all simple. The biomechanics of an uppercut can propel the punch using the legs. 1, using the torso. 2, or by shifting body weight. You can do all of this together, or you can do it from circular approaches. All of this is the foundation of biomechanics. Now a tip for beginners. It is very important in boxing to have a competent coach, because when it comes to punching, it concerns boxing. Boxing is viewed from the perspective of a single punch. And therefore your coach should explain to you, from an educational process standpoint, how to properly develop from stance to punch. Every element cares of the punch is developed from the first part, the second part, and the third part. Each element is set separately and then together as a whole. This is such a metamorphosis. Something right away? Well, yes, I'll give it now. But nothing will work out. If you have recently started boxing, all these axial rotations of yours will look like a mess. You need to clearly understand what axial rotations are and how the line of the punch is set on them. Therefore, there are many complexes that, from the point of view of preparing for a punch, are like working on a speed bag. That is, you start hitting the speed bag, you can't do it quickly, you need to hit it slowly. The same goes for working with a heavy bag, with pads, and so on, and so on. Do everything slowly, meticulously, and thoughtfully. So beginners, don't rush your punch. A punch is set from the fingertips to the tips of the toes, and from the tips of the toes to the fingertips, through the entire body. To be precise, and precision is the determining factor of strength. You need to practice. In one go, I'm afraid you won't even understand what it's about. You'll just end up injuring your hands, that's all. You start to understand what biomechanics is only after about 6 months of training. The definition of biomechanics is precise knowledge when you master it. In boxing, there's I think and there's I know. I think means you are training, you are learning. I know means you are acting. In the ring, you can't think. In the ring, you need to know. Therefore, the principle of biomechanics and working with biomechanics in boxing is, well, not just for nothing. It's already, well, the highest level of skill, if you understand this.